Welcome back, music lovers. Today we have a guitar I'm really particularly fond of, the Les Paul. This one is a survivor, belongs to Babul from Peace Fog's Den. It's been gigged. It fell off of a stand, or actually was knocked off of a stand by a precocious youngster that was somewhat obsessive about the guitar, which damaged it. I didn't like, after the repair, the knobs were different heights because of the cracks in the veneer, and the bridge actually had worn down quite a bit over the years from being rubbed on, and probably a good deal from sweat and whatnot. So check out how I fixed a few of the repairs, fixed the tuning pegs, dealt with the knobs, and put a new Goto bridge on this bad boy.
The stop posts and the bridge posts were corroded in place, rusted solid basically, so it took a screwdriver to break those loose. I'm very careful not to slip and scratch the guitar. Got them out, placed them in some break-free CLP to help cut down on the corrosion. Then the bridge, which normally would just set on its post, was actually rusted in place. As you can see here as I'm trying to wiggle it loose. So using a screwdriver, I backed the threads off a little bit, which should have released it, but actually didn't. It was still somewhat attached to the actual stud on one side. So I had to actually thread the post basically all the way out of one side to get the bridge off. 30 plus years of South Texas humidity and sweat had taken its toll on this stuff, so really rusted. Then the selector switch for the pickup was annoying. I hate when they're off center like this, so being careful to support the guitar so we don't damage the switch or the pickups in the front. I took off the selector access cover, and then you basically just have to, I wanted to make sure there weren't any wires binding, is why it was twisted that way, and then you should loosen the knob up on the front, straighten the switch up, and be sure to hold it tightly. It was under a little bit of load from the wires, which is probably how it ended up that way. Then make sure to tighten it back securely so that it can't end up crooked again like that. Just takes a little bit of extra finger pressure applied to it. Made sure it worked okay after tightening it back up in there. And we're going to work on the potentiometers next. The front of the guitar had been damaged pretty badly when it fell over, so they replaced the potentiometers, I believe, but the cracks in the actual body of the guitar and the face had made the replacement potentiometers, 3 of them, stick up much higher than one in particular where the face wasn't as damaged. So I wanted to correct this.
Is where the footage was particularly bad. So basically I installed fender washers underneath the surface of the guitar on 3 of the potentiometers to get them to be lower in the actual face of the veneer and match the one that was still stock.
I use fender washers because regular potentiometer washers take too many to stack up and put under there, and the threads don't go all the way to the bottom on a pot, so the fender washers would go to the bottom and make a nice flat seal, and they'd help protect the face of the guitar in the future because of the extra surface area. Here we're giving the guitar a nice polish with everything out of the way. Old finishes like this you have to be careful with, but it's still a poly finish, so it's pretty thick, so it just helps to get some of the scratches out and chips and whatnot. It makes it really good. Due to a combination of years of use and honestly, when the guitar fell over, the tuning pegs were a little loose, bent. So one nice thing about these are they can actually be bent back and tightened back up somewhat as long as the gears aren't too worn out. So using a pair of pliers, I carefully returned it to the proper shape, folded the tab down a little bit to make the top cover actually fit tighter on there. These are fairly soft jawed pliers I was using there so they don't damage the finish of the actual tuning. They were much nicer after having the slack taken out of them. Then using the fret rocker, check the neck out. It had 1 or 2 high frets, so using a file, we take it down a little bit. Being careful not to damage the finish of the guitar. Files can really do some damage if you're not careful. Then we made a pass completely down the neck with a fret crowning file to help return all the frets to their youthful shape with the nice thin top. So, for 30 years, the frets had experienced quite a bit of wear. This really did help with the leveling that needed to be done. So then finish off with a fret polishing. I use fret erasers. There are many ways to polish frets, but I like the fret erasers. They're pretty quick, do a pretty good job. So. And the last part of neck maintenance, oiling the neck up. Wasn't very dirty, so instead of squirting a lot of oil on it and working at it for a long time, I just put a little bit on the rag and kind of rubbed it in and looked for dry spots over time. Good. Usually takes 10 or 15 minutes to really tell if you've got the oil, neck oil, well oiled. Then we reinstall the tuners, making sure they're all tight. And replace the felts on the end pins. These strap buttons were kind of grungy looking, so then we installed the new Godot bridge, which is actually an upgrade. It's a slightly later model bridge than what the original guitar came with. It's the ABR2 as opposed to the ABR1, so it doesn't have the wire retaining the screws. Instead, the screws run through the body of the bridge. So it is a little larger, but in the long run, it should last longer. It's really well made. I think they're manufactured in Japan. The capture screws are really quite nice. And to give yourself a head start, I always go ahead and preset the intonation. As long as you have the old bridge handy, you can kind of see where it goes in relation to the original one. Makes the intonating the guitar much easier in the long run. So let me get this guy installed on here. Looks so nice compared to the old corroded one where all the finish had worn off the brass. Then lastly, we check the string height, which of course needed adjustment. I eyeballed it when I put the bridge on. Didn't do too bad though. So I think I had to lower it slightly. Yeah, which means tightening the screws on a Potentiometer style bridge. That tightening them lowers it, loosening them raises it. There we go. As you can see, a couple more checks, see if I have the string height about where I want. Then lastly, we set the intonation. As always, you fret the guitar at the 12th fret and at the open string and adjust if necessary. With a Potentiometer style bridge like this with these screws, you can break the strings with a screwdriver. So either loosen the string off slightly and pull it out of the way, or just be very careful because a Phillips screwdriver will snag an E or a B string and snap it in a heartbeat.
And there you go, a Survivor brought back to daily player status. It's a beautiful guitar, I really love it, and I hope they're happy with it after it's been fixed. So join us again next time. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.